Hi, this is Charlie Calvert, and this is a special late night edition of our video series. And I thought I'd just give you a little quick lesson here on creating HTML documents. This is very beginning level, basic stuff. How do you write an HTML document? I'm going to want you to create HTML documents, by default HTML5 documents, and I want them to follow a particular format. So if I'm going to ask you to do that, I think I need to explain to you what I want done. So let's bring up Microsoft Expression Web, and this is Expression Web 4.0 Service Pack 2, and I'm going to just start from the beginning, assume you know nothing about HTML, even though I know some of you do. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Site menu item, and I'm going to say close any sites. If you happen to have one open, let's close that one. And let's go to here and create a new site, that we can work with, and we'll make it an empty site, and we'll pick a place for it. And I suggest not going into this My Websites directory up here. Don't get involved in this My Websites directory. Go to someplace else on your system and create your site there. And we can just call it my site. We'll call it 01 in case I've got some other my site around here. And that'll be the site where we'll develop things. So general, empty site, location, my site 01, someplace on your hard drive, add to manage list and give it a name. And you could use this directory and call it my site starter or something. You can rename it here, give it some other special name that you want. There's a lot of metadata that is used by default. So I'm sorry, I do things too quickly sometimes. I go to the Site menu and I choose Site Settings. All right, Site menu, Site Settings. And I say let's just erase that metadata. It helps maintain links inside your site, which is great. And so you might want to turn it on sometimes. But by default, if you don't need it, I think it's best to delete it. And then if you do need it again, just go Site Settings, and just select it and click OK, and then you can rebuild that metadata at any stage in your development. But by default, I think it's simpler to have it without it, and particularly if you're going to copy your site from one place to another. And then over here in Tools, I go to Page Editor Options. So I went to the Tools menu. Let me just do it again. I go to the Tools menu, I go to Page Editor Options, and then I turn to the Authoring page. And in there, I set the document type to HTML5, and I set the secondary schema to HTML5, and I set the CSS schema to CSS3 draft. These are all draft specifications at the time I'm working with, and there may be times in this course where I'll want you to use some other version of HTML than HTML5, but by default, let's use HTML5. So set things up this way, and if you do that, then when you go File, New, HTML, and you create a new HTML page, our first one here, it will by default use the syntax that's part of HTML5. You notice that there is no version number here specified in the doc type, and that means that the doc type for this document is HTML5. If it said something else, 4.2, 1.0, something strange, if it mentioned XML, if it was a lot longer and a lot harder to read, then you would have some other version, which I prefer you not to use by default. Use version 5. It's the simplest and the best. What we're looking at right here is the underlying code, which the user never sees. But this is the syntax of the HTML of an HTML document, and that's what it looks like. We actually have two views of our document. One is a design view, okay, and we can switch to design view, see only the design view. We can switch to the code view, see only the code view, or we can have a split screen which shows us both the code up here and the design view down here. And if we want some content in our document, we can come down to the design view and just write hello world and save it. save our work, and when we press F save, we can save this file. We might want to call it default.html, which means that if somebody goes to our site and doesn't specify a particular file to use, it will open up that document. So default is a very fine name for your first document, or you could just call it my first document.html and save it. Okay. And notice that it put hello world in the title here by default, since we hadn't specified a title for it. In HTML5, you must specify a title, so there must be one in there. So as a way, all of our work was being done for us automatically. It generated the HTML code for us, HTML5 doc type. Over here, we were able to write hello world and specify things. Now, if we come to this icon right here, preview in Internet Explorer or in some other, you can see I have Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, all these different browsers installed. Let's preview in Chrome. It doesn't much matter which one we choose. And if I preview in Chrome, you can see that it came up, and here's our document. Pretty simple, HTML5, my first document with the words hello world here. Now if I Alt-Tab back, I can be back in the editor, then Alt and press Tab, and I'm back in the browser. You hold down the Alt key, you touch Tab, and it takes you back and forth between the two options. Okay. Now, let's go back to the editor, and let's just talk for a second about the HTML that's been generated here. Now, HTML is a markup language, and that means that there's tags that are used to format the content that appears in your site. We've already talked about this doc type tag way at the top. The next thing to see is that your entire HTML document appears inside of a tag. There's an opening tag and a close tag, and they look very much alike. Open angle bracket, HTML, close angle bracket. Then down at the bottom, open angle bracket, then a slash, then HTML, then close angle bracket. Okay? We very often have pairs of tags. This is called an HTML tag, sometimes also called a node, but it's an HTML tag. Okay? And here's another HTML tag, body, and here's the closing pair for that one. Here's a tag, paragraph, it starts here, it closes here. Notice that if I click on body here, that up here it tells me a little bit about the tag. If I click on the paragraph down here, it tells me that I'm inside the body tag and inside a paragraph tag. There's kind of things that get told to us about our document up here. And if we want to change the type of tag we have an option to do that here. But let's not mess with that right now. We'll just leave this the way it is. Not visible to the user, there's a header that's part of each HTML document, and it begins with a head tag, open angle bracket, the word head, close angle bracket, and it ends with a head tag, open angle bracket, then that slash, which means that this is not a beginning opening tag but a closing tag, and then the word head. And in between it there are these meta tags, which we're not going to worry about at all. They were generated for us automatically. And then this title tag, which we do care about because you must have a title tag in an HTML5 document or it won't be a proper HTML5 document. And this document is in fact a proper HTML5 document. And I want proper HTML5 documents. And we'll talk in another case about how we can verify that our document is actually legitimate. So why don't we do just one other thing here in the editor. Why don't we come down here? I'm going to just, using the what you see is what you get editor part of it, I'll type in my title here, and then I'll go up to here, drop it down, and choose heading 1 for the title. And now you can see my title gets written in large print. And down here, it's not a P tag anymore, it's an H1 tag that's around it. And that says I want this particular bit of text to appear as a heading 1. So that's what the tag means. And then if we Alt-Tab back to the browser and we do a refresh, we can see the new content that we've created here. So that's all I wanted to say today. Thank you very much for watching this video.